Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is college basketball stats guru, friend of the program. His name is Ken Pomeroy. Check him out at kenpom.com. Ken, nice to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, guys. Great to chat with you this morning.
All right, BYU and Illinois State tonight, and we're looking at this through a lens of the new N.E.T or N.E.T ranking system. What do you think of college basketball's new ranking system, Ken?
Well, I'm hopeful. Let's put it that way. Obviously not a lot of information has been released about the formulation behind it. And, we got our first kind of taste of what the rankings look like this week. But, it's so early in the season that it's premature to pass judgment on it. I think generally speaking, it will be a good thing. It's clearly a step up from the RPI. And, people really have to remember that it's not about rank, where you rank in it. It's basically about defining your schedule and your wins and losses. So, it's just an apparatus to basically organize your schedule and, determine, which of your games are against top 50 opponents, against top 100 opponents, et cetera. And I think it will do a better job of doing that, certainly, than the RPI did.
Yeah, RPI was started in 1981. We shouldn't use much that was started in 1981 in 2018, right? There are very few items in your life.
Atari is the best video game system.
Yeah, come on. So it's an upgrade. But at the end of the day, Ken, do you feel like this evaluates the means more as opposed to just the end, which was like, did you win or lose? There's way more to it now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm as nostalgic as the next guy. There's some things I'll reminisce about from the 80s, but I mean, certainly when it comes to judging college basketball teams, I mean, obviously methods have improved and computing power has increased, and we can do better. And yeah, that's the idea here is that scoring margin does matter when you're trying to evaluate the strength of a team. So if you beat a team that is 26-5, like it kind of depends on how they got to that record, who they played, how they played in those games. You can be a really strong 26-5 team playing a weak schedule if you dominated that competition, or you could be, not that strong if you really struggled against a weak schedule. So that's where this net is really going to help, is evaluating those teams, the teams that play kind of the weaker schedules, trying to parse through, are they a truly great team, or are they just a team that, benefited from some breaks and playing a weak schedule? Like that's where we'll really see the improvement.
College basketball stats guru Ken Pomeroy with us on BYU Sports Nation. Your own rating is finding some significant footing and holding among NCAA Tournament Selection Committee members, and we know that the net will play a large role. Is the N.E.T. the most influential metric in helping the committee come March? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Like it's going to replace the RPI, and it's going to be the foundation for what's, the information that they get on their so-called team sheets, where they see, not only like how you did against the top 50 or the top 100, but individually, game by game, where your quality wins were, where your best road wins were, things like that. All that information is going to be in front of the committee in terms of the N.E.T. So yeah, no question. Now, my, rankings for my rating will be on there. Sagarin, the BPI from ESPN, the KPI, a couple others out there. Those will also be on the team sheets, but the net will be, the overwhelming thing that kind of influences decisions by the committee. So that's the way it's at least going to be for, this year and probably the next few years.
Last year was the first year of the kind of the quad system, if I'm not mistaken. How did you feel that went when determining and evaluating how good teams are and who gets in and who gets out and what seeding they get?
Yeah, I thought it was poorly explained, maybe, because last year was the first year of the quadrant system, but I mean prior to that we always had the top 50, the 50 to 100, 100 to 200 slices of data, and what the quadrant did was really improve on that and acknowledge that. Beating number 51 on the road is more impressive than beating number 50 at home. And the quadrant system now at least acknowledges that. It obviously doesn't distinguish between beating number 1 and beating number 50, which, the committee is theoretically doing on their own. I mean, the quadrant system is basically a high-level, way to look at data and catch the eyes of the committee on certain teams. And the committee should be taking it a step further and looking within, the quadrant 1 wins. If the team's 7-0 against quadrant one? Were they playing top 10 teams in that list? Was it all teams kind of, around the 50 mark? That's the job the committee should be doing in parsing this data. But generally speaking, I do think the quadrant system is a more fair way, let's say, of grouping quality wins and bad losses than just using a straight up ranking, which didn't consider where a game was played.
Ken Pomeroy with us on BYU Sports Nation. Do you see any significant weaknesses within the new N.E.T ranking system?
Well, it's again, we're really guessing because they didn't release the exact algorithm, and they just kind of, release small details here and there, little bits of information, and we're kind of guessing as to how this all works. And it's going to be a learning process over the course of the season. The weakness really is the lack of transparency. It's kind of not fair to teams to not know how the system works. And the system was back-tested on previous years, so they have that information. They have information on what, the end-of-season ratings looked like for the past at least 5 years, is my understanding. So, releasing that information, I think, really would have been a service to everybody. So we don't know. We don't know what this is going to look like, or the kinds of things that are being rewarded. Is running up the score going to be valuable or not? Those kind of questions would be nice to know, and we don't really know them. So that's the biggest problem I think that I and everybody else has with this new system.
The college football playoff has the same issue. We don't know exactly what criteria goes into choosing the four. Is it the best four? Is it the most deserving? We don't know. At the end of the day, we're just happy that March Madness happens. We're happy that there's a college football playoff. We're getting there. We'll get there eventually. Okay, it seems like road and neutral games are more valued than home wins, right? So BYU stepped up its schedule. Do you feel like the non-power 6 or 7, if you will, in college basketball, of which the West Coast Conference is not a part, that a team like BYU is going to have to kind of change their scheduling mantra to get into the NCAA tournament, to have more quad 1 and quad 2 games?
I think this is the way I explain it to people who ask me about, especially like coaches, ask me about, hey, how should I change my schedule? And to me, the committee is, in a very simple sense, looking at what you did, what your best 5 wins are, let's say, and what your worst 5 losses are. They're obviously looking at a little more information than that, but what it boils down to is look at your best wins, look at your worst losses, and that's going to go a long way towards determining whether you get in the tournament. A great example last year, the Pac-12 actually was a great example last year. Nobody considers them a mid-major necessarily, but as a conference weren't that great. And Arizona State gets into the tournament with an 8-10 conference record because they'd beaten 2 number 1 seeds earlier in the season. So 2 of the best wins that anybody could claim. And USC does not get into the tournament with a 12-6 conference record. 4 games ahead of Arizona State because they had nothing in their non-conference schedule. And they obviously in the Pac-12 there weren't a lot of quality wins either. So USC just didn't have these high-level wins. And so I do think scheduling top 50 teams in the non-conference is especially important if you're in the WCC, because you just don't know what you're going to get in conference play. If you're BYU, you can usually count on St. Mary's and Gonzaga to provide you with 4 of those games. But even this year, St. Mary's is kind of a wild card. So maybe you only get the 2 games against Gonzaga. And in that case, you need 3 or 4 games in non-conference play just to kind of have a chance to catch the committee's eye.
Wait a minute, Ken. On November 26th, LMU was 10 in net, so I don't know what you're talking about. San Francisco was 25 in net. I don't know what. Yeah, it's early. It's early.
It is clearly very early. Ken, what games left in the BYU non-conference schedule can the Cougars make an impact on their N.E.T ranking and really find some good favor with the selection committee?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. I mean, they have opportunities, and this is a quirky year, I think, for them schedule-wise, because they have home and home set up, or home 1-1 set up for the playing teams, home and away contracts, but a lot of the away games are this year, so that actually can work to their benefit if they can go on the road and get those wins. I mean, Illinois State, even though they're not an elite team, winning that game on the road will at least be a quadrant 2 win this year, I would say. Utah's obviously not having a great year, but a neutral site win over them should be a quadrant 2 win. I think ultimately that's how it'll turn out. Going on the road to Mississippi State, it's not an easy place to play. Going on the road to San Diego State, not an easy place to get a win. But both of those could be quadrant 1 games. So there are opportunities here, and again, not easy, obviously, to win away from the Marriott Center when you're playing tough competition. But the opportunities will certainly be there if they can figure things out.
Ken, before you go, remind the people how they can find your stuff and what's new on the site this year.
Yeah, thank you. So, obviously KenPom.com is where all the stats are. New on the site this year, kind of moving into the visual realm. Got a new little feature called the D1 Universe, which kind of is just a handy way to basically view stats for the entire realm of 353 teams, the click of a button, basically. So that's kind of the nifty thing there. I'm also writing at The Athletic. Got a column there once a week, so it's a super good value as well. Just tons of great writing over there, obviously beyond myself. So those are basically the two places that you can find me this year.
Ken, great to talk to you, man. We appreciate the time. Look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Ken Pomeroy on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.